Rain hammered the rooftops of Blackridge military housing hard enough to shake the windows. The storm rolled over the town after midnight, swallowing the streets beneath sheets of rain while thunder rattled the distant hills. Evelyn Carter sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the digital clock glowing on the stove. 12:43 a.m. Daniel was supposed to call 3 hours earlier. She reached for her phone again, refreshing the empty message screen even though she already knew nothing new would appear. Overseas missions often delayed communication, but tonight felt different. The silence pressed against her chest until breathing itself became exhausting before she could breathe again. Then came the pounding. 3 hard knocks slammed against the front door. Evelyn jumped so violently that her coffee mug slipped from her hands and shattered across the floor. Another knock followed immediately, louder this time, deliberate and heavy enough to freeze her in place. She thought Daniel had come home. She hurried toward the door, heart racing, bare feet crossing the cold wooden floor. Lightning flashed through the front window as she unlocked the deadbolt. 2 uniformed officers stood beneath the porch light. Rain streamed from their caps and shoulders. One was older, gray-haired, stiff-backed. The younger officer kept his eyes lowered toward the porch floor. Evelyn felt the world tilt before either man spoke. "Mrs. Carter," the older officer asked quietly. Her throat tightened. "Where's Daniel?" Neither officer answered immediately. The older man removed a folded paper from inside his coat with practiced precision. "We regret to inform you that Sergeant Daniel Carter was killed during an overseas operation 48 hours ago." The words landed without meaning at first. Killed. Overseas. 48 hours. Evelyn blinked slowly, waiting for reality to correct itself. Daniel was alive. He had promised he would call. He promised he would come home before Christmas. Only 6 nights earlier he had laughed over video chat while showing her the terrible instant coffee soldiers drank overseas. "No," she whispered. The younger officer shifted uncomfortably. "There must be some mistake," Evelyn said louder. "You have the wrong person." "We confirmed identification before arriving," the older man replied. His voice sounded polished, memorized. Evelyn stared at them as rainwater pooled beneath their boots. "I want to see him." A pause. "The operation remains classified," the older officer said. "His remains are currently being processed." Processed? The word made her stomach twist violently. "Where's his wedding ring?" she asked. Both men froze for a fraction too long. Evelyn noticed it immediately. Daniel never removed the ring. Not during training. Not during combat. The recovery team was unable to retrieve all personal belongings. The older officer answered. Again, rehearsed. Something cold moved beneath Evelyn's grief. Fear. Suspicion. Thunder exploded overhead. The younger officer finally looked at her, and for a brief second she saw pity in his eyes. The officers offered condolences, handed her paperwork she could barely see, and disappeared back into the storm. By 1:30 in the morning, the house felt like a tomb. Evelyn wandered from room to room, unable to stop shaking. Daniel's boot still rested beside the couch. His razor remained near the bathroom sink. Half of his clothes still hung in the closet, carrying traces of cedar soap and cigarette smoke. She collapsed beside his old combat bag in the bedroom and buried her face into the fabric, inhaling desperately as grief finally tore through her chest in violent sobs. That was when she felt something hidden beneath the bag lining. Confused, Evelyn unzipped the inner seam and reached inside. Her fingers wrapped around a small black bonaphone. The screen suddenly flickered to life in her hands. One unread message appeared. "Don't trust the Army." The message glowed against Evelyn's trembling hands while thunder rolled outside the bedroom window. "Don't trust the Army." She stared at the words for nearly a full minute before finally unlocking the bonaphone. There was no password. The home screen opened instantly, revealing dozens of deleted text threads, encrypted files, and missed calls stretching back almost 7 months. Her stomach tightened. Daniel had carried this phone long before his final deployment. Rain continued hammering the roof as Evelyn sat on the bedroom floor, scrolling through messages that made less sense the deeper she went. Most of the texts were fragmented, half-erased conversations filled with numbers, coordinates, and warnings. "They're watching." "Do not come back here." "Burn everything." Several messages came repeatedly from a single unknown number saved only as LM. Evelyn opened the attached photographs. Most were blurry images taken overseas. Crowded streets, military vehicles, dim hotel rooms, and armed soldiers standing beside unfamiliar men in suits. Then she found the final image. Her breath stopped. Daniel stood outside a hotel entrance at night with his arms wrapped around a dark-haired woman. The photograph was grainy, but intimate enough to destroy something inside her instantly. Evelyn dropped the phone onto the carpet. For several seconds she simply stared into the darkness of the bedroom while grief twisted violently into anger. Daniel had died carrying secrets she never imagined. Affairs, lies, hidden phones. The memories began replaying differently now. Daniel sitting awake at 3 a.m, smoking cigarettes beside the kitchen window. Daniel snapping at her for touching his duffel bag before deployment. Daniel disappearing outside to answer calls in the middle of dinner. She once asked him if something was wrong. No, he answered coldly. Just tired. But he had not looked tired. He had looked afraid. By dawn, Evelyn had not slept once. Her eyes burned from crying as headlights appeared outside the house. A black government sedan rolled slowly into the driveway. A tall man stepped out carrying a leather folder beneath his coat. He introduced himself as Marcus Hale from Military Investigations. Marcus spoke softly, almost gently, but everything about him felt controlled. His dark tie remained perfectly straight despite the storm outside, and his calm expression never shifted while he offered condolences. "I know this is difficult," he told her while sitting at the kitchen table. Daniel served his country honorably. Evelyn studied him carefully. "Then why won't anyone tell me what happened?" Marcus folded his hands together. "The operation involved sensitive intelligence." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give." The room fell silent except for rain striking the windows. Marcus's eyes drifted briefly toward the hallway leading to the bedroom. Evelyn suddenly wondered whether he already knew about the burner phone. "You should avoid looking into unofficial matters regarding Daniel's deployment," Marcus said carefully. "People often misunderstand classified situations." The warning hid beneath polite language, but she heard it clearly. Before leaving, Marcus handed her his business card. "If you remember anything unusual about Daniel's recent behavior, contact me immediately." Unusual behavior. The phrase echoed in her head long after the sedan disappeared. That afternoon, Evelyn drove across town using the burner phone beside her on the passenger seat. She had traced a repeated number through online records until it led to a local diner near the highway. Lena Morales, 26 years old, waitress. Evelyn turned around twice before entering the diner. Her chest felt tight with humiliation and fury. The lunch crowd filled the room with conversation and clattering dishes. Then she saw her. Dark hair, nervous eyes. The same woman from the photograph. Lena froze the moment Evelyn approached the counter. "You knew my husband," Evelyn said quietly. The color drained from Lena's face. Evelyn placed the burner phone on the counter between them. "I deserve the truth." Lena stared at the phone in horror before leaning forward. Her voice dropped into a terrified whisper. "Your husband wasn't killed in combat," she said. "He was executed."
The diner suddenly felt too small for Evelyn to breathe inside. Coffee machines hissed behind the counter while distant conversations blurred into meaningless noise. Lena kept glancing toward the windows as if expecting someone to burst through the doors at any second. "You're lying," Evelyn whispered. "I wish I was." Lena led her into the diner's storage room, locking the door behind them. The cramped space smelled of bleach and wet cardboard. Evelyn folded her arms tightly across her chest, trying to stop herself from shaking. "Start talking." Lena hesitated before sitting on an overturned bucket near the shelves. "Daniel came back almost a month ago," she said quietly. "He contacted me after disappearing from base overseas. He said somebody inside his unit wanted him gone." Evelyn stared at her in disbelief. "That's impossible. The army said he died 48 hours ago." They lied. Lena's eyes filled with fear rather than manipulation. That frightened Evelyn more than anger would have. "He was different when he came home," Lena continued. "Paranoid. Barely sleeping. Sometimes he'd stay awake for 2 days watching the windows with a gun in his lap." Evelyn remembered those same sleepless nights before deployment. Daniel pacing through the house long after midnight. Daniel checking the locks repeatedly. She once asked whether combat was getting harder. "You wouldn't understand," he snapped. At the time she thought it was stress. Now it sounded like terror. What illegal operations? Evelyn asked. Lena swallowed hard. He never told me everything. Just pieces. Civilians disappearing. Prisoners executed. He said officers were covering things up. Evelyn felt sick. No, she whispered. Daniel wouldn't do that. He said he tried to stop it. The room fell silent. Lena finally looked directly at her. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Evelyn understood immediately. The affair. Pain surged through her chest so sharply she nearly lost balance. Daniel had carried another woman into the middle of their marriage while she waited at home, believing distance alone explained his coldness. How long? Evelyn asked quietly. Lena's voice cracked. A few months. Evelyn turned away before the rage inside her exploded. She wanted to scream, to destroy something, to hate Daniel completely. But beneath the betrayal sat another unbearable realization. Daniel had been unraveling long before he died. He talked about exposing people, Lena said carefully. Then one night he disappeared. After that, I heard nothing until the military announced he was dead. Evelyn pulled out the burner phone. What's this warehouse? Lena froze after seeing an address inside Daniel's deleted messages. He went there 3 days before he vanished. That evening they drove across the industrial edge of Blackridge while rainwater still flooded parts of the streets. The abandoned warehouse stood near old train tracks surrounded by rusted fencing and broken floodlights. Before entering, Evelyn noticed a black sedan parked across the road. Marcus Hale sat behind the wheel. Her stomach tightened immediately. Marcus stepped out calmly as they approached. You shouldn't be here, he said. Evelyn crossed her arms. Are you following me? I'm trying to protect you. From who? Marcus ignored the question. His eyes shifted briefly toward Lena. Daniel became unstable near the end, he said carefully. People struggling with trauma sometimes create dangerous fantasies. You mean corruption? Evelyn snapped. Marcus's expression hardened for the first time. Go home, Mrs. Carter. The warning carried quiet menace beneath the politeness. Marcus eventually drove away, but Evelyn no longer believed it was coincidence. Every conversation now felt rehearsed. Controlled. Like invisible hands were pushing her away from the truth. Inside the warehouse, darkness swallowed nearly everything beyond the doorway. Lena used her phone flashlight while Evelyn searched through scattered debris and overturned crates. Then she saw it. A dark stain smeared across the concrete floor. Blood. Near the corner, partially hidden beneath a wooden crate, something metallic reflected the flashlight beam. Evelyn knelt slowly and pulled it free. Daniel's military dog tags rested in her trembling hands. A cold breeze moved through the broken warehouse windows. Somewhere outside, tires crunched across gravel again. Evelyn looked toward the darkness beyond the entrance while clutching the dog tags, suddenly certain Marcus Hale had never left alone. Marcus's sedan vanished into the darkness beyond the warehouse gates, but Evelyn could still feel his presence lingering around them like smoke. She gripped Daniel's dog tags tightly while Lena nervously scanned the empty rail yard outside. We need to leave, Lena whispered. Evelyn nodded, though her thoughts were spiraling too fast to settle. The dried blood on the concrete floor kept replaying inside her mind. Daniel had been there. Hurt or hunted? Maybe both. Back at Evelyn's house, they locked every door before spreading the contents of the burner phone across the kitchen table. Deleted messages, hidden audio files, photographs, coordinates. Daniel had buried pieces of another life inside that device. Lena opened a folder containing military transport records and blurry scans of handwritten reports. These started appearing after he came back, she said quietly. He thought somebody was trying to erase evidence. Evelyn studied the documents beneath the dim kitchen light. Several pages listed detainees captured during overseas operations. Most names were crossed out in red ink beside one repeated word. Transferred. But no destination appeared beside the transfers. Another document showed interrogation schedules involving civilians, including teenagers and elderly men. Evelyn felt nausea rise into her throat. Daniel was part of this, she asked. Lena hesitated. I think he was at first. The answer crushed something inside her. Evelyn remembered Daniel before the deployments. Gentle. Protective. The kind of man who once carried an injured stray dog home during a thunderstorm because he couldn't bear hearing it cry outside. Now she stared at records suggesting he participated in covert interrogations where prisoners later vanished completely. War had not simply changed him. It had hollowed him out. Lena finally opened one of the audio recordings stored on the phone. Static crackled before Daniel's exhausted voice filled the kitchen. "We crossed the line months ago." Another soldier answered sharply. "You follow orders." They were civilians. They were threats. They were terrified. A loud crashing sound interrupted the recording before Daniel shouted words that made Evelyn's blood run cold. "This is the kind of thing that destroys people forever." The recording ended abruptly. Silence swallowed the kitchen. Evelyn pressed trembling fingers against her lips while memories resurfaced with terrifying clarity. Daniel waking from nightmares drenched in sweat. Daniel punching a hole through the garage wall after hearing fireworks outside. Daniel staring blankly at family photographs as though he no longer recognized himself inside them. She once begged him to talk. Instead he said, "Some things don't leave you." Now she finally understood. The following afternoon Marcus Hale arrived unannounced. He stood inside Evelyn's living room holding a thin folder while rain dripped from his coat sleeves. Calm as always. Controlled as always. "You've been investigating classified operations," he said. Evelyn refused to sit down. "Why are you really here?" Marcus placed the folder on the table. Inside were newspaper clippings praising Daniel's military service alongside photographs from award ceremonies and humanitarian missions. "Your husband died a decorated soldier," Marcus said quietly. "If certain information becomes public, that legacy disappears. Maybe it deserves to." Marcus studied her carefully. "You don't understand the consequences." His voice never rose, yet every word felt like pressure against her throat. "People get hurt when secrets spread carelessly," he continued. "Families. Witnesses. Innocent soldiers." For the first time Evelyn questioned herself. What if exposing Daniel's actions destroyed people who had nothing to do with the crimes? What if Daniel truly became unstable near the end? Marcus moved toward the door before stopping. "Some truths bury everyone connected to them," he said softly. After he left, Lena sat silently at the kitchen table for several minutes before speaking. "There's something else." Evelyn looked up. Lena's hands trembled violently. "I'm pregnant." The words hit like another explosion. "I think it's Daniel's." Evelyn closed her eyes as pain, betrayal, and exhaustion crashed together inside her chest. She could barely process one nightmare before another appeared. Then the burner phone rang suddenly. An unknown male voice whispered through the speaker. "My name is Tyler Grant. I served with Daniel. We need to meet tonight before they find me." Hours later, Evelyn drove to Tyler's apartment across town. Police cars already surrounded the building. Yellow tape stretched across the entrance while paramedics wheeled out a covered body bag beneath flashing lights. One officer quietly told the crowd the same thing over and over. Apparent suicide. Tyler Grant's death was ruled a suicide before sunrise. The speed of it disturbed Evelyn almost as much as the body itself. She stood across the street watching police officers dismantle the crime scene while rainwater reflected the flashing red and blue lights across the pavement. Combat-related psychological trauma. That was the official explanation repeated to reporters gathering outside the apartment building. Tyler, according to military representatives, had struggled emotionally after returning from deployment. But Evelyn noticed details nobody else seemed willing to question. The apartment window was shattered outward instead of inward. Tyler's front door showed scratches near the lock like someone forced entry. Most unsettling of all, one paramedic whispered to another that the gunshot angle looked strange before immediately going silent after spotting military personnel nearby. Marcus Hale appeared beside Evelyn without warning. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. She stared toward the covered body bag. "He called me before he died." Marcus's expression barely changed. Tyler was deeply unstable. That's convenient. His eyes shifted toward her carefully. You're starting to see conspiracies everywhere. Maybe she was. But deep inside, Evelyn knew Tyler had been terrified during that phone call. Terrified people did not calmly plan suicide meetings. Over the following days, Daniel Carter became a national headline. News channels replayed photographs of him in uniform while patriotic music played beneath stories describing bravery, sacrifice, and honor. Reporters camped outside Evelyn's house waiting for interviews. Neighbors left flowers on her porch. Complete strangers thanked her for Daniel's service while staring at her with pity. The entire country seemed determined to transform Daniel into a hero before his body even returned home. Evelyn hated every second of it. Still, she agreed to the interviews. She sat beneath television studio lights wearing black dresses and rehearsed expressions of grief while anchors praised Daniel's courage. Publicly, she became the perfect military widow, soft-spoken, devastated, proud. Privately, she was collapsing. Every lie made her chest tighten further. Yes, Daniel loved his country. Yes, he believed in duty. Yes, he died protecting innocent people. The words tasted poisonous now. At night, Evelyn secretly reviewed files from the burner phone while whiskey bottles slowly emptied beside her laptop. Sleep became impossible. She started hearing noises outside the house constantly. Engines idling too long near the curb, footsteps near windows, phones clicking with strange interference. Paranoia spread through her thoughts like infection. Lena noticed immediately. "You need rest," Lena whispered one evening. Evelyn snapped harshly, "Don't tell me what I need." The tension between them worsened daily. Lena's pregnancy hung unspoken between every conversation like another betrayal neither woman could escape. Yet Evelyn continued lying to her anyway. She lied about meeting Marcus secretly. She lied about the worsening nightmares. Most dangerously, she lied about beginning to doubt Daniel himself. Marcus arrived again 3 nights later carrying another folder. "You deserve the full picture," he said. Inside were disciplinary reports Evelyn had never seen before. Daniel accused of assaulting another soldier overseas. Daniel investigated after a civilian detainee died during interrogation. Daniel ordered into mandatory psychiatric evaluations following violent episodes after combat missions. Evelyn's hands trembled while reading. "No," she whispered. "This isn't him." Marcus remained calm. War changes people. He would never kill civilians. Marcus slid a photograph across the table. The image showed Daniel standing beside armed soldiers near several blindfolded prisoners kneeling in dirt. One prisoner appeared barely older than 16. "The mission ended badly," Marcus said carefully. Daniel blamed himself afterward. Evelyn felt physically sick. For the first time she wondered whether the army truly had been protecting the world from Daniel rather than hunting him. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "If these records become public, people will remember your husband very differently." After he left, Evelyn locked herself inside the bathroom and vomited until tears blurred her vision. She no longer knew which memories were real. The loving husband who held her during thunderstorms. Or the fractured soldier hiding bodies and secrets overseas. Near midnight her phone vibrated with an unknown encrypted message. No text. Only a video attachment. Hands shaking violently, Evelyn opened it. Grainy surveillance footage appeared on screen dated 4 days after Daniel's official death. A hooded man exited a gas station convenience store beneath flickering lights somewhere outside Blackridge. The camera angle was poor, but Evelyn recognized the posture instantly. The slight limp in his right leg from an old combat injury. The way he rolled his shoulders while walking. Daniel. Alive. The footage ended with him turning briefly toward the camera before disappearing into darkness. Evelyn replayed the surveillance footage at least 20 times before dawn. Each viewing deepened the same impossible conclusion. Daniel was alive after the military claimed he died. By morning she had traced the gas station location through landmarks visible behind the grainy video. The station sat near Blackwood Forest, nearly 70 miles outside town. Lena drove while Evelyn remained silent beside her, clutching the burner phone tightly enough to hurt her fingers. Fog rolled through the forest roads as they traveled deeper into the mountains. Pines crowded both sides of the narrow highway, swallowing sunlight beneath heavy branches. The farther they drove, the more isolated everything became. "You've been here before?" Evelyn asked quietly. Lena nodded nervously. "Daniel brought me once." The answer stung, but Evelyn lacked the energy for anger anymore. After another mile, Lena turned onto an overgrown dirt trail nearly invisible beneath mud and fallen leaves. At the end sat a small hunting cabin hidden between dense trees. The place looked abandoned. Dark windows. Rotting porch steps. A rusted generator half buried beneath weeds. Yet Evelyn immediately sensed Daniel everywhere inside it. His boots stood beside the fireplace. Army blankets remained folded across an old couch. Cigarette burn scarred the wooden table near the kitchen wall. "He stayed here between deployments," Lena whispered. "Sometimes for days." Evelyn moved slowly through the cabin while dread tightened inside her chest. Daniel had built an entire secret life hidden beyond the edges of their marriage. Inside a locked metal box beneath the bed, she discovered dozens of handwritten journals. The entries became more disturbing page after page. They erase people after missions. Witnesses vanish before investigations begin. We were told civilians were enemy collaborators. Several passages described interrogations involving prisoners transferred to undisclosed military facilities. Daniel repeatedly mentioned a covert operation called Shepherd. Evelyn's stomach twisted while reading. One entry appeared written during a severe emotional breakdown. "I followed orders because I was afraid. Then I kept following them because stopping meant admitting what we'd become." Another page listed names beside the word deceased. Most had military ranks. Daniel believed soldiers threatening exposure were being eliminated and disguised as combat casualties or suicides. The cabin suddenly felt suffocating. Lena opened another hidden compartment behind loose wall panels near the fireplace. Cassette tapes. Old voice recordings labeled with dates. Evelyn inserted one into a dusty tape player sitting nearby. Static crackled softly before Daniel's exhausted voice filled the room. "If somebody finds these recordings, it means I ran out of time." Evelyn closed her eyes instantly. Hearing his voice again shattered something fragile inside her. Daniel sounded hollow, sleep-deprived, terrified. "They told us we were protecting the country," he continued. "But eventually the mission stopped making sense. Prisoners disappeared. Villages burned. People who questioned orders never came back." A long silence followed. Then his breathing grew uneven. "I tried to leave. They said nobody leaves Shepherd alive." Evelyn pressed trembling fingers against her mouth while tears blurred her vision. Another tape contained a confession recorded weeks later. "I love my wife." The words came quietly. "But I also loved Lena because she saw the version of me that survived all this." Lena looked away immediately. "I destroyed both of them," Daniel whispered through the speakers. "Everywhere I go, people get hurt." The tape clicked off. Outside, wind moved violently through the trees while darkness slowly swallowed the forest around the cabin. Evelyn suddenly realized evening had arrived without either woman noticing. Then she saw movement outside. A figure standing briefly between the trees. Gone seconds later. Her pulse spiked instantly. "Did you see that?" Lena froze near the window. "See what?" Evelyn stepped outside onto the porch holding a flashlight. The woods stretched endlessly beyond the cabin, silent except for branches creaking in the wind. No footprints. No movement. Still, the sensation remained unbearable. Someone had been watching them. Back inside, Lena locked the doors while Evelyn searched the remaining journals faster. Several pages described military investigators tracking Daniel after he threatened to release evidence publicly. One repeated name appeared throughout the writings. Marcus Hale. Evelyn's blood turned cold. Suddenly the generator outside shut off. The cabin plunged into darkness. Lena gasped sharply. Footsteps crunched through leaves beyond the porch. Slow. Deliberate. Evelyn moved toward the window carefully before lightning flashed across the forest. A masked figure stood outside holding a rifle directly toward the cabin. The rifle fired before Evelyn could react. Glass exploded inward across the cabin as Lena screamed and dropped behind the couch. Evelyn threw herself to the floor while another shot tore through the wooden wall above her head. "Move!" she shouted. The masked figure advanced outside through rain and darkness, boots crunching across wet leaves. Panic flooded Evelyn's chest as she crawled toward the kitchen, searching desperately for anything usable as a weapon. Another gunshot blasted through the doorway. Lena cried out in pain. Evelyn turned sharply and saw blood spreading across Lena's shoulder where shattered wood and bullet fragments had ripped into her skin. Oh God! The cabin suddenly became chaos, splintering wood, thunder outside, smoke drifting through broken windows. Evelyn grabbed Lena beneath the arm and dragged her toward the back hallway while bullets slammed into walls behind them. Then headlights appeared through the trees. A black sedan roared onto the property. Gunfire erupted outside almost immediately. 2 sets of shots. Shouting. Then silence. Evelyn held Lena tightly while both women struggled to breathe inside the dark hallway. Footsteps approached the porch cautiously. "Evelyn," a voice yelled. "It's Marcus." She froze. Marcus Hale entered moments later holding a handgun and flashlight. Rain soaked his coat while his expression remained strangely calm considering the violence surrounding them. "It's over," he said. "He's gone." Evelyn stared at him suspiciously. "Who?" "One of Daniel's former squad members." Marcus stepped toward the broken window carefully. "My team intercepted communications about the cabin earlier tonight. Whoever came here was sent to clean up loose ends." The explanation arrived too quickly. Too perfectly. Evelyn noticed Marcus carried no visible injuries despite supposedly exchanging gunfire in darkness with an armed assassin. Outside, no body remained near the woods. No blood trail. Nothing except tire marks disappearing into the trees. Lena winced painfully while clutching her bleeding shoulder. Marcus immediately knelt beside her. "We need to get her to a hospital." "No hospitals," Lena whispered fearfully. "They'll find us." Marcus hesitated. That tiny pause unsettled Evelyn more than anything else. Eventually Marcus drove them toward an isolated emergency clinic outside Blackridge instead of the main hospital. During the drive, Lena drifted in and out of consciousness in the backseat while Evelyn pressed towels against her wound. For the first time since learning about the affair, resentment slowly gave way to something else. Pity. Lena had not looked triumphant stealing another woman's husband. She looked terrified and broken by the same man who destroyed Evelyn emotionally. "He loved you," Lena whispered weakly from the backseat. Evelyn stared forward silently. "He talked about you constantly." Pain tightened inside her chest. Outside the car windows, storm clouds rolled across the mountains while radio stations erupted with breaking news reports. Leaked military files had suddenly appeared online less than an hour earlier. Daniel Carter's name dominated every broadcast. Some networks called him a whistleblower exposing illegal wartime operations. Others labeled him a violent soldier suffering psychological collapse after committing atrocities overseas. Images flashed repeatedly across television screens inside the clinic waiting room. Daniel in uniform, Daniel carrying civilians after explosions, Daniel beside armed troops near destroyed villages. Hero. Monster. Victim. Nobody seemed certain anymore. Marcus finally spoke while sitting beside Evelyn beneath harsh fluorescent lights. Daniel was under investigation before he vanished. She looked at him sharply. For what? Marcus leaned forward slowly. Civilian deaths. Unauthorized interrogations. Disobeying operational commands. Evelyn felt dizzy. So the photos were real? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Marcus rubbed exhausted hands across his face. For the first time he looked less like a controlled investigator and more like a man carrying years of buried tension. "We believed Daniel became unstable," he admitted quietly. "Then soldiers connected to the investigation started dying." Evelyn's voice trembled. "You think he killed them?" "I think somebody wanted it to appear that way." Silence stretched heavily between them. Finally Evelyn asked the question haunting her constantly. "Was Daniel murdered?" Marcus studied her carefully before answering. "We never recovered a body." Evelyn stopped breathing. Marcus lowered his voice further. There's a possibility your husband survived whatever happened overseas. He paused. Daniel Carter may still be alive. The words followed Evelyn long after Marcus spoke them. Daniel may still be alive. She sat awake beside Lena's hospital bed until sunrise, replaying every lie, every photograph, every recording. Grief had once given her clarity. Now uncertainty destroyed even that. If Daniel survived, then somewhere beneath the fear and betrayal remained the possibility of answers. Marcus returned the following evening carrying sealed documents inside a weatherproof folder. You need to understand what Daniel became involved in, he said quietly. Lena remained asleep nearby while rain tapped softly against the clinic windows. Marcus spread several classified reports across the table between them. After Daniel threatened to expose wartime operations connected to Shepard, certain people wanted him eliminated, Marcus explained. Others wanted to use him as a witness. Evelyn studied him carefully. Which side were you on? Marcus ignored the question. He entered an unofficial protection program. No records. No public custody. A small escort team moved him between safe houses while preparations were made for testimony against senior officials. What happened? Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. The team vanished during transport. The room fell silent. No bodies were recovered, he continued. Vehicles abandoned. Communications wiped. After that, Daniel disappeared completely. Evelyn stared toward the darkened window. Somewhere out there Daniel had either become prey or something far worse. Over the following days she stopped functioning normally. She barely slept. Barely ate. Every waking moment became consumed with tracing Daniel's movements through hidden messages, leaked files, and military records. Her grief slowly transformed into obsession. She no longer knew whether she wanted to save Daniel or expose him publicly for everything he had done. Sometimes both desires existed simultaneously. That frightened her most. Late one night she listened to another cassette recovered from the cabin. Daniel's breathing sounded ragged beneath distant helicopter noise. They burned the village after interrogation, he whispered. We were told insurgents were hiding there. A long pause followed. There were children inside. Evelyn closed her eyes painfully. Another voice spoke in the background. Angry. Panicked. You talk and we all go down. Daniel answered coldly, maybe we should. The tape ended abruptly with shouting and gunfire. For the first time Evelyn fully accepted something terrible. Daniel had not simply witnessed horrors overseas. He participated in them. War had transformed him into both victim and accomplice. Meanwhile, leaked military documents continued spreading online. Public outrage intensified daily. Protesters gathered outside government buildings demanding investigations, while veterans publicly defended Daniel as a scapegoat abandoned by corrupt leadership. The country split into sides. Whistleblower. War criminal. Patriot. Monster. Evelyn stopped recognizing the man she married within any version of the story. Then Lena confessed something that shattered the remaining trust between them. I helped him hide evidence, she whispered one night. Evelyn looked up sharply. Lena sat trembling at the kitchen table inside the clinic's safehouse apartment. Her injured shoulder remained wrapped in thick bandages. He gave me hard drives and documents before disappearing, Lena admitted. I destroyed some of them. Why? Because I was scared. Tears filled Lena's eyes instantly. He said people were dying because of those files. I thought protecting him meant protecting everybody. Evelyn felt anger rising again. How many people disappeared because you helped him? I don't know. The honesty hurt more than excuses. Still, Evelyn saw the crushing guilt already destroying Lena from inside. Daniel had pulled everyone around him into the same nightmare. Marcus arrived hours later with another lead. A military medical facility nearly 80 miles north had appeared repeatedly inside encrypted location data from Daniel's burner phone. The building officially closed years earlier after structural damage during a storm. Why would Daniel go there? Evelyn asked. Marcus answered carefully. Because abandoned facilities make excellent hiding places. Near midnight they reached the property. The medical complex loomed against the mountains like a dead city. Shattered windows, rusted fencing, collapsed guard towers swallowed by weeds. Fog drifted across cracked pavement while distant thunder echoed overhead. Marcus remained outside checking the perimeter while Evelyn and Lena entered through a side doorway. Darkness consumed nearly everything beyond the entrance hall. Old hospital beds lined the corridors beneath layers of dust. Ceiling paint peeled downward like dead skin. Somewhere deeper inside the facility, metal clanged softly against concrete. Evelyn's pulse quickened immediately. "Daniel!" she called quietly. No answer. Then came footsteps somewhere nearby. Slow. Dragging slightly. Her flashlight trembled across the hallway walls while Lena grabbed her arm tightly. Suddenly a familiar voice whispered from the darkness ahead. "Evie." Evelyn froze instantly. "Don't let them see you." Evelyn's flashlight shook violently as the whisper echoed through the abandoned corridor. "Evie, don't let them see you." The voice was weaker than she remembered. Rough. Damaged. Yet unmistakably Daniel's. Lena gasped softly beside her. A shadow moved at the far end of the hallway before disappearing behind rusted medical curtains. Evelyn followed instinctively, her heartbeat hammering so hard it hurt. "Daniel." Silence. Then another dragging footstep. She turned the corner and finally saw him sitting against the wall inside a collapsed hospital room. For several seconds Evelyn could not breathe. Daniel Carter looked nothing like the soldier displayed on television screens. His beard had grown wild and uneven. Deep bruising darkened one side of his face. He had lost alarming weight, leaving his military jacket hanging loosely from his body. A healing gunshot wound remained wrapped beneath dirty bandages near his ribs. But the worst damage lived inside his eyes. Fear. Exhaustion. Guilt so heavy it seemed to crush him from within. Evelyn stood frozen while tears blurred her vision. "You're alive," she whispered. Daniel stared at her like a man seeing a ghost. "You shouldn't have come here." The sound of his voice shattered the last illusion protecting her emotions. Rage, grief, relief, betrayal, all of it collided violently inside her chest. "They told me you were dead." "I know. You let me bury you." Pain crossed his face instantly. "It was the only way I could disappear." Lena remained near the doorway silently watching them while Daniel struggled slowly to his feet. Every movement looked painful. Marcus entered moments later with his weapon lowered. Daniel immediately tensed. "You brought him?" Daniel asked sharply. "He helped us find you," Evelyn answered. Daniel laughed bitterly. "That's dangerous." The room fell silent beneath distant thunder outside. Finally Daniel sat heavily beside an overturned hospital bed and spoke quietly. Shepard wasn't just interrogations. His hands trembled badly. Senior officials wanted results overseas. Faster intelligence. Fewer legal restrictions. Villages suspected of helping insurgents were targeted whether evidence existed or not. Evelyn listened numbly while Daniel described secret detention sites, torture sessions, and civilian executions hidden beneath classified operations. "Anyone questioning orders became a liability," he continued. "At first I convinced myself we were preventing attacks. Saving lives." His voice cracked. Then children started dying. Evelyn closed her eyes painfully. Daniel looked completely hollow now, like war had consumed every remaining piece of humanity inside him. "One night we raided a village near the border," he whispered. "Command believed insurgents were hiding there. We dragged families from their homes. Interrogated people for hours." He stopped speaking briefly. There were no insurgents. Lena quietly wiped tears from her face. Daniel stared down at his shaking hands. A little girl couldn't have been older than 7. She died during crossfire after somebody panicked. The confession hung heavily inside the ruined hospital room. "That was when I started recording everything," Daniel continued. "I thought exposing them would stop it." "But you still participated," Evelyn said quietly. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes." The honesty hurt more than denial would have. Evelyn looked at the man she once loved beyond reason and struggled to separate him from the horrors he described. She remembered Daniel teaching neighborhood kids baseball during summer cookouts. Daniel dancing with her barefoot in the kitchen late at night. Now that same man admitted involvement in torture and civilian deaths. "I don't know who you are anymore," she whispered. Daniel's eyes filled with quiet devastation. "Neither do I." Marcus finally stepped forward. "You staged Daniel's death." Daniel nodded again. "Some investigators wanted me alive long enough to testify. They arranged false identification after an attack overseas. I disappeared before official reports reached the public." "But somebody betrayed the operation," Marcus added quietly. Daniel's expression darkened instantly. "The escort team was ambushed before reaching the safe house. Since then everybody connected to Shepard has either vanished or died." He looked directly at Evelyn. "They won't stop hunting me until the evidence disappears." Suddenly headlights flooded through broken hospital windows. All four froze. Outside, engines roared across wet pavement. Military vehicles surrounded the facility from every direction, while massive floodlights illuminated the building in blinding white beams. The facility shook under coordinated fire as floodlights carved through broken windows and dust-filled air. Evelyn barely recognized the hospital corridors anymore. They had become tunnels of smoke, echoing with distant gunshots and shouted commands. "Move!" Daniel pulled her forward again, dragging her deeper into the maintenance wing. Behind them Lena stumbled, clutching her injured arm while trying to keep up. Marcus followed in silence, weapon lowered now, as if he had accepted the inevitability of what was coming. The siege tightened quickly. Metal doors slammed shut somewhere behind them. Boots thundered through the upper floors. Then a voice came over a loudspeaker outside, calm and controlled. "Daniel Carter. You are surrounded. Step outside unarmed." Daniel stopped walking. Evelyn felt him tense beside her. "No," he whispered. Marcus stepped forward slightly. "If you go out there, they'll take you into custody. Maybe trial. Maybe silence. But people will see you alive." Daniel shook his head slowly. "That's not what this is." Lena cried softly behind them. "I can't do this anymore. I just want my baby to survive." Evelyn turned sharply. "We will get you out." But even as she said it, she didn't believe it anymore. Daniel looked at all of them, exhausted beyond recognition. "This isn't about me anymore," he said quietly. "It never was." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Then make it about the truth. Give us the evidence and we can protect you." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Protect me? From the same people who erased entire villages?" He stepped closer to Evelyn. "I tried to disappear because I thought silence would stop this," he said. "But it didn't. It just buried more bodies." Evelyn's eyes filled. "So what do you want now?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. Outside, gunfire intensified, echoing through collapsing concrete. Finally he said, "I want the truth to reach the world, even if it kills me." Silence followed. Marcus watched him carefully. "And everyone else here?" Daniel hesitated for the first time. Evelyn felt that hesitation like a wound. "That's not for me to decide," he admitted quietly. "But I won't let them erase what happened." Lena shook her head desperately. "This isn't justice, it's suicide." Footsteps suddenly erupted above them. Multiple entry points breached. A violent explosion rocked the far end of the corridor, sending dust and debris crashing down. Marcus immediately raised his weapon again. "They're inside," he warned. The corridor filled with shouting voices and rapid movement. Evelyn grabbed Daniel's arm. "We have to run now." Daniel looked at her one last time, as if memorizing her face. "I'm already gone," he said. Before anyone could respond, gunfire erupted at the junction behind them. Bullets ripped through the hallway walls, forcing them into a blind sprint toward the lower service tunnels. Lena screamed as another blast shook the structure. Marcus covered their retreat, firing back into the smoke-filled corridor. The group split momentarily in chaos, then regrouped near a collapsing stairwell. Marcus shouted over the noise. "They're coordinating from outside." This isn't a rescue operation, it's containment. Evelyn's mind froze at the word. Containment again. Daniel looked upward through broken ceiling panels where helicopter lights swept across the building. "They're not here to capture me," he said quietly. Another explosion rocked the structure. He continued, voice breaking slightly. "They're here to make sure none of this survives." A sudden burst of automatic fire cut through the corridor, forcing them into cover. Marcus moved first, dragging Evelyn behind a concrete barrier as dust and sparks flew. For a moment everything blurred into noise and movement. Then silence cracked sharply. A single shot echoed differently than the rest. Marcus stiffened. Evelyn turned just in time to see him fall to one knee. Blood spread quickly across his jacket. "Marcus," she shouted. He coughed hard, gripping the wall to stay upright. Daniel reached for him instinctively, but Marcus raised a hand weakly. "Stop," Marcus gasped. His breathing was shallow, broken by pain. Evelyn knelt beside him, shaking. "Stay with us. We can still get out." Marcus looked directly at her, ignoring Daniel entirely now. His voice dropped to something raw and unguarded. "I wasn't trying to stop him." Evelyn froze. Marcus coughed again, struggling to speak. "I was trying to keep you alive." Silence swallowed everything around them. Even the gunfire seemed distant for a second. Evelyn stared at him, unable to process the words. Marcus's hand tightened briefly on her wrist. Then he whispered one final truth. "Because they weren't coming for Daniel." Another breath. "They were coming for you." The facility did not survive the night. By dawn, only scorched concrete and collapsing steel remained where the abandoned medical complex once stood. Emergency sirens echoed across Blackwood Forest as military units secured the perimeter, but by then the truth had already begun leaking beyond containment. Footage surfaced within hours. Fragments of intercepted communications. Partial recordings from Daniel's burner phone. Classified documents Marcus had forced into public channels before he lost consciousness. By evening, the story could no longer be buried. Daniel Carter's name dominated every news network. But the narrative fractured immediately. Some called him a hero who exposed illegal wartime operations hidden under the codename Shepherd. Others insisted he was a psychologically unstable soldier responsible for civilian deaths and internal executions, who fabricated a conspiracy to escape accountability. Evelyn watched it all from a hospital recovery room, sitting in silence while television screens replayed images of burning facilities and classified documents stamped red with government seals. There were no clear answers anymore. Only versions of truth competing for survival. Daniel did not survive the final operation. He died in transit before he could be stabilized for questioning. No final testimony. No official statement. Just another sealed report added to a growing archive of contradictions. Evelyn did not cry when she was told. She simply stopped reacting to words altogether. Lena survived. Months later, she gave birth in a private medical unit under restricted protection. The child arrived quietly, without ceremony or recognition from any authority. Lena held the baby for a long time before speaking his name out loud. She never told Evelyn what she decided. Only that the child would not carry Daniel's name. Marcus Hale survived longer than expected, though heavily guarded in a classified facility while investigations expanded across multiple military branches. Before his testimony was cut short, he requested one final meeting with Evelyn. She agreed only once. He looked nothing like the controlled investigator she once feared. Injured, exhausted, stripped of authority. "I knew Daniel before Shepherd," Marcus said quietly. Evelyn did not respond. "We served together," he continued. "Long before the program. Before everything broke." He paused, breathing carefully. "He wasn't always what you saw at the end." Evelyn finally spoke. "Neither were you." Marcus accepted that without argument. "I tried to stop what was happening," he admitted. "From both sides. Daniel went too far. The system went further." Silence stretched between them. Then Marcus added one final truth. "If I hadn't intervened when I did, you would already be dead too." Evelyn left without replying. In the weeks that followed, leaked recordings were released publicly from Daniel's hidden archive. Evelyn made the final decision herself, against legal warnings and government pressure. She published everything. Every confession. Every recording. Every fragment of truth Daniel left behind. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Protests erupted in major cities. Government officials resigned under public pressure. Military operations were suspended pending international review. But alongside outrage came denial, anger, and confusion. Daniel Carter became a symbol split in half. A whistleblower who exposed atrocities. A soldier who committed them. A man both condemned and praised depending on who spoke his name. Evelyn refused all interviews. She stopped speaking publicly entirely. Months passed. Then winter arrived. Lena visited Evelyn once, briefly, holding the child close against the cold wind. Neither woman spoke about Daniel directly. Some things were too heavy to name aloud. The world moved forward without resolution. No verdict ever felt final. On a snowy afternoon, Evelyn stood alone in a quiet cemetery far outside the city. Daniel's grave was simple, unmarked except for a temporary stone still under review by military authorities. Snow fell softly across the ground as she placed a folded piece of paper beside it. It contained only fragments of Daniel's final recording. I tried to stop it. I didn't know how. I'm sorry. Evelyn stayed there until the cold stopped feeling like anything at all. When she finally turned to leave, she noticed a black unmarked car parked across the road. Engine running. Windows tinted. Watching. She did not stop walking. Because by then she understood something no investigation had answered. The story was never finished. Only paused. That night, back at her apartment, Evelyn opened her mailbox. Inside was a sealed military envelope. No return address. Only one stamp across the front in bold black ink. Classified. Phase 2.